Um, I'm tired, but we got one more video to record. What up, Discord? I love you guys. And this time, we're not in the home screen of DraftKings, where I'm going to show you guys some tournament strategy and really when we're talking about ownership, what type of high level game theory you need with ownership percentages. Because to me, ownership is the most important thing when trying to build my lineup, just factoring in who's low owned, who's a high owned, things like that. So we're going to look at two different lineups I entered that scored really well this past NFL season. And this is also going to tie into the contest selection little talk I had in my last video about why contest selection is so important. So with this first lineup you're seeing, I was able to get second, a cool $6,000 building this DFS lineup. What I think this was like week 3. And you see the stack in it. I'm combining all my videos now. Look at the game stack. You got Dak Prescott to Michael Gallup and Schultz as tight end. I brought it back. Brought it back with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. That's a nice little game stack going. And then I just plugged in some running backs I could afford. I put Hopkins in the flex. Who wouldn't want him? And my defense showed up to play. So altogether, I put up a total score of 235 fantasy points. And I still didn't even come in first. I came in second. So remember how I was saying in my contest selection video, if you're going against tens of thousands of people, you need like the most perfect lineup to actually win. Well, this was a tournament I entered with tens of thousands of people. And no, I did not break my own advice. I'm allowed to do this. I have money to burn. I got it through the mud. I've been through some stuff for the past few years trying to get to the point to where I can go after tournaments with that many people in it. And I'm pretty good at this now, so I feel like I actually have a chance to win, even semi-consistently with that many people in the field. But remember my last video, if you're starting off new, go to those filter settings, play at those stakes. I'm telling you, I promise you, you'll be able to build up a bankroll if you're just grinding at it, building lineups, listening to my advice, stacking, things like that. But yeah, I entered this tournament. This had like 80,000 people in it. And I came in second with a score of 235. And literally everyone was on fire except for one person that still didn't come in first. So when you're playing with in tournaments with that many people, you need perfection. I didn't have it and I didn't come in first. But the most important thing is, like I said, this is about game theory. Look at the ownership percentages. So that little percentage you see next to everyone's name, that's saying what the ownership was in that tournament. So Dak Prescott, that's saying 8.98% of the field was using Dak Prescott. So as he was getting points, the 9% of the field that was using him, they were all getting points with me. But, the other 91% of the field, they were being left behind because they were using other quarterbacks. That's what that means. And overall, one thing that you need to know, if you're playing in tournaments with a lot of people, which you shouldn't be doing, but if you're breaking my rules, I'm at least going to put you on game a little bit. If you're playing in tournaments with a lot of people, you need to have some really low-owned players to get away from the field. You need to pick some stuff that's off the board in a way. So because I was going against so many people, look at my running backs. I made sure to include running backs I knew were going to be really low-owned. Who uses Jeff Wilson Jr.? Apparently 3% of people do, or 4%. Who uses Rex Burkhead? I'm surprised he was even 2% owned. I felt like they were in good spots. I thought their teams are going to win. If their team is going to win, they were going to be running the ball. In both of those backfields, who knows who's going to get the rock. But I took a chance. I took a risk. I put them in my lineup. They performed, especially Rex. Rex did his thing. He had 3 touchdowns. But they performed. They were so low owned. So what that means is, as Jeff Wilson and Rex Burkhead were racking up fantasy points, like 98% of the field didn't have Rex. So I was shooting past 98% of the field. Only 2% of the field had him with me, and they were gaining points with me. Only 4% of the field used Jeff Wilson. So 96% of the field were missing out on these 21 fantasy points, or they're using players who maybe scored similar, or odds are they're using running backs who did a lot worse. So I was going past them. And to use them together, probably like less than 1% of the field actually used them together. So as they were both doing their thing, I was just shooting past everyone. Like, you need low-owned plays. You need off-the-wall plays in order to give yourself a chance to actually shoot up in the tournament. Like, if I just use all chalky plays in tournaments with that many people, then even if my lineup's doing good, so is the whole field. I'm using players that are like 40% owned. Yeah, I'm happy. Like, I think this week Ezekiel Elliott was like 30% owned. I didn't use him because, I'll be happy if I had Zeke in my lineup and he scored 3 touchdowns. But, am I really moving up the tournament that much? 30% of the field's moving up with me. I still have a lot of people to beat. So you got to get off the board with just a few plays. I didn't get off the board everywhere. You see, I still had DK Metcalf 14%, Tyler Lockett 23%, DeAndre Hopkins 30%. He was pretty high owned. I still use high owned plays, but I made sure to mix in those players I knew were going to be single digits. Schultz 1% owned. Maybe he should have been. He didn't do that good, but I still took a chance. Michael Gallup 9% owned. He did his thing. But I made sure when building this lineup, I knew I was like, all right, DeAndre Hopkins is going to be chalky. Tyler Lockett is. DK Metcalf, a lot of people are going to have him. So let me make sure I get off the board with some low-owned plays elsewhere. And Dak Prescott, I know it's only saying 9%, but that's pretty high owned for a quarterback. Usually quarterbacks don't get higher than 15, so that was pretty high owned. I knew, so basically this stack, Dak, that week, the Cowboys-Seattle game was going to be the highest owned game. Everyone was going to be using players from that game. But everyone was just using Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. So when I used Dak Prescott, I just wanted to be different. Instead of using Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, what if Michael Gallup and Schultz, do their thing? So I took a chance there. I brought it back with Tyler and DK. I just ate the chalk there. I got low-owned running backs. But you see how this combination of some high-owned, some low-owned plays, that's what you need in order to really shoot up the leaderboards, especially if you're going against a lot of people. I've talked for way too long just about this one lineup. I have another one to go over. I was able to win first in this lineup. One thing, the contest that I entered, in the last contest, it was like, I forgot what it was. It was like 80 or 60,000 people I was going against. In this tournament, I was only going against 500 people. You see, I was able to get first place with a total score of 188. I had people who were legit cold. This dude only put up 2 points. Kareem Hunt put up 9. In my last lineup, everyone was on fire except for Schultz, but at least Schultz wasn't cold. I had 2 lineups, two people were straight up cold. And I was still able to get first because I'm only going against 500 people. Before, I was going against like 80,000. It's a big difference. So, this proves the point of when you're going against less people in the tournament, there's more room for error. You don't have to be perfect. I put up way less points with this lineup. I still was able to get first. Overall, with the ownership percentages, the game theory, when you're going against less people, you don't have to be as unique with your lineup either. So as you can see, this lineup was a lot more chalky. I had 15% owned Russell Wilson. I had 2 running backs over 50% owned. And in hindsight, I shouldn't have used either of them. They both really didn't do that good. But when building the lineup, I didn't feel bad. I knew they were going to be high owned. I didn't feel bad about it because I knew I only have to be different in maybe 1 or 2 spots because I'm going against less people. In the first lineup, and just to go back really quick, in this first lineup, how many? I had 1, 2, 3, 4. I had 5 different positions that were in single-digit ownership. In this lineup, I think I had 2 positions in single-digit ownership. I didn't get as crazy with it because I didn't have to because I'm going against less people. Keenan Allen, 35% owned, really high. Brandon Ayuk, 26% owned. DK Metcalf, 23. The Dolphins defense, 23. I was just eating ownership. I didn't care. And then once I built this lineup, I put in Marvin Jones and Irv Smith last because I built the lineup. I knew this was really chalky. I was like, I just need a few guys who are going to be less than 5% owned. And I chose Marvin Jones. He got me 2 touchdowns. I chose Irv Smith Jr. He literally had 1 catch. Bad play. But he did his job. He was really cheap. He let me afford the rest of this lineup. I didn't have to be perfect. There was only 500 people, and just Marvin Jones really by himself, that 3% owned guy, it gave me a player that was going to be really low owned. That made my lineup different, and since he did well, it gave my whole lineup a shot to actually get first place. So ownership is really big. When I make my rankings or I make my recommendations, I always factor in ownership. I'll actually even have a section letting you know who the high owned plays are. So each week I'll say this running back may be high owned, this receiver may be high owned. That doesn't mean you can't use them, but when you're building a lineup, make sure your entire lineup isn't just filled with high owned players. And if you're entering a field with only 500 people in it, maybe you only need to be different in 1 or 2 spots. I'll let you know who I like that may be 5% owned. Throw in that 5% owned guy that I recommend. You may only need 1 or 2 of those guys. But if you're playing a tournament with 80,000 people in it, which you shouldn't be, but if you are, you may be only put like 3 or 4 high owned guys in, and then the rest is all 1%ers, 5%ers, 8%ers, things like that. We're gonna be working on building lineups, contest selection, ownership. Like, there's a lot more to go over, but I wanted to at least have these introduction videos to teach you guys the concepts, and then each week as we're going along, I'm going to be looking at the lineups you built. I'll show you the lineups I build. Like, we can compare, ask questions. We can do our thing. We can, go after this bread. This silence is just so relaxing. But I need some outro music. Like, this sucks. But yeah, see y'all on the Discord.